A war veteran in class, high school had no clue how to deal with her. Students moved in groups, carrying backpacks, chatting about homework, weekend plans, and who would win the next basketball game. It was ordinary until she arrived. No one really knew what to expect when a new student joined mid-semester, but no one could have prepared for Lieutenant Arya Kane. She walked into the school office with calm, precise movements, dressed in neat jeans, a plain t-shirt, and boots that clicked slightly with each step. Her posture was straight, her gaze steady, and there was an unmistakable air of confidence that made the secretary hesitate before handing her the enrollment forms. "Name?" the secretary asked, glancing at the clipboard. "Arya Kane," she replied. Her voice was soft but firm, like someone used to giving orders rather than asking questions. The secretary raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. Arya filled out the forms quickly, signing her name with a bold, clean stroke. When she was done, she stood and waited, scanning the office as if memorizing the layout. Something in her presence felt different from any student the school had ever seen. By the time Arya was led to her first classroom, news of her arrival had already spread. Whispers filled the hallways. "Did you hear? A new student, she's a war veteran," someone said, eyes wide. Another replied, "Yeah, apparently she was in some military mission overseas. She's probably super dangerous." No one knew what to make of it. High school students were used to judging new students by style, social media posts, or athletic skills. A real soldier, that was new. Arya entered her classroom quietly, carrying a single backpack. She scanned the room with calm precision, noting empty seats and avoiding eye contact unless necessary. The teacher, Mrs. Henderson, greeted her warmly. "Class, we have a new student joining us today. This is Arya Kane," she said. A few students whispered among themselves. Some tried to glance at her, noticing her sharp features, calm demeanor, and alert eyes. Others looked away, nervous or intimidated. She didn't sit in the typical cool kid spots. Instead, she chose a seat at the back of the room, near the window. From there, she could see the entire classroom clearly, every movement and every face. The teacher introduced her to the class, but Arya simply nodded and smiled faintly. She didn't need to say much. Her presence alone made an impression. During the first lesson, Arya's discipline became apparent. She took out a notebook, wrote neatly organized notes, and completed a pop quiz without hesitation. While other students doodled, whispered, or fidgeted, Arya remained focused. She answered questions with clear, thoughtful responses, surprising her classmates with both knowledge and confidence. By lunch, rumors had gone wild. "Did you see her take that quiz? She got everything right," one student said. "I heard she can handle real combat missions," another added. "Imagine if she was in gym class." When Arya entered the cafeteria, conversations dropped for a moment. She carried her tray deliberately, chose a seat at the edge of the room, and began eating calmly. Some students dared to approach her, trying to make small talk. "Hey, you're Arya, right?" a boy from her class asked nervously. "So, what was it like, being in the military?" Arya looked up, meeting his eyes directly. "It taught me discipline, teamwork, and staying calm under pressure," she replied simply. There was no bragging, no exaggeration, just straightforward honesty. The boy nodded, unsure what else to say. Across the table, another student whispered to his friend, "She's different. You can just tell she's not like us. It's kind of intimidating." But despite the quiet awe, Arya didn't push anyone away. She observed, listened, and responded when necessary. Slowly, the students realized she wasn't there to compete socially or to intimidate. She was just herself. And that was enough to make everyone pay attention. After lunch, the first gym class tested everyone's patience and energy. Students who had been excited about the usual drills and games suddenly felt nervous as Arya joined in. She moved with efficiency, completing exercises with perfect form, yet never showing off. In a relay race, she ran with speed and strategy, never reckless, always calculated. Her peers struggled to keep up, but instead of arrogance, Arya offered a few tips to those who asked politely. By the end of gym, a few students admitted grudging respect. "She's fast, really fast," one said. Another added, "And she's smart too, not just brawn." Back in the classroom, the rest of the day passed with similar patterns. Arya adapted quickly, answering questions, helping with group assignments when asked, and maintaining a quiet but undeniable presence. Her classmates were intrigued by her balance of strength and humility, discipline and patience. As the final bell rang, students gathered their bags, still whispering about the new girl. "I can't believe she's in our class," one said. "Do you think she's scary?" "Not scary," another replied slowly. "Just impressive, like she's from another world or something." Arya, meanwhile, walked through the halls with steady steps. She noticed the small tensions, the friendships forming, and the subtle hierarchies of high school life. She understood quickly that this environment had rules and challenges different from a battlefield. But her skills, discipline, awareness, calm thinking, would help her navigate them. At the end of the day, she returned home, unpacked her bag, and reflected on the strange new world she had entered. High school was different from any mission she had ever undertaken. There were no enemies to defeat, no strategies to win wars, but the challenges of fitting in, understanding people, and earning trust were new forms of tests. Arya didn't feel intimidated. She felt ready. For the students of Lincoln High, however, the first day of Arya Kane's arrival had already made a lasting impression. A war veteran in class was more than unusual. It was extraordinary, and no one could predict what the coming days would bring. Some students watched her from afar, curious. Others felt uneasy, unsure how to act around someone who had seen things they couldn't imagine. But one thing was certain: nothing at Lincoln High would ever be quite the same. That night, as the school's lights dimmed and the hallways emptied, the thought of Arya Kane lingered. A presence like hers could not be ignored, and already the seed of fascination, respect, and maybe a little fear had been planted in every student who had encountered her. The second day at Lincoln High started like any other, with students rushing through the halls, backpacks bouncing on their shoulders, and the scent of fresh chalk from classrooms filling the air. But for the students who had met Arya Kane, it was not like any other day. Her arrival had left a mark. Everyone wondered how this war veteran would adjust to the everyday chaos of high school life. Arya walked into the classroom quietly, her boots clicking softly against the polished floor. She carried her notebook and a small bag neatly over her shoulder. She had already learned the layout of the school from her first day and now moved with a kind of quiet efficiency. Nothing distracted her, nothing startled her. She was fully aware of her surroundings, a habit from years of military training. Her classmates, on the other hand, were far less disciplined. Groups of students whispered and laughed, tossing papers at each other or exchanging playful jabs. At first, some had thought Arya would ignore it, but she didn't flinch. She calmly picked up a stray pencil from the floor and returned it to the owner, nodding politely. Her small, simple action caught everyone's attention. During the first lesson, Arya's method stood out again. While other students doodled in their notebooks or stared out the window, she had a perfectly organized notebook with clearly marked notes. When the teacher, Mr. Patel, asked a difficult question about history, Arya's hand went up immediately. Her answer was precise, thoughtful, and well-explained. Even the students who usually sat at the front whispering among themselves paused to listen. "She's amazing," one student muttered to a friend. "How does she know all this stuff already?" "She's a veteran," the friend replied. "Maybe they teach this in the military or something, I don't know." As the day continued, Arya's differences became even more noticeable. In science class, while other students rushed to finish their experiments, Arya took her time to carefully read instructions, check her measurements, and make sure her results were accurate. She did not complain when things didn't work perfectly the first time. Instead, she calmly analyzed the problem and tried again. Her patience amazed some students and frustrated others who had grown used to rushing through tasks. The biggest challenge for Arya was gym class. Physical education, meant to be fun, had turned into a silent battlefield of awkwardness and confusion. The students played a game of basketball, but Arya's skill and strategic thinking stood out immediately. She anticipated movements before they happened, passed the ball with precision, and scored effortlessly. Some students tried to compete, but her calm confidence made them second-guess themselves. A boy named Tyler, known for being the fastest runner in the class, tried to race Arya. He ran as fast as he could, expecting to leave her behind easily. But Arya stayed level with him, matching his speed with perfect rhythm and stamina. Tyler's competitive smile faded into confusion. He couldn't understand how a new student, especially one he assumed would be out of shape from time away from normal life, could be this strong and focused. After the game, a group of students approached Arya, hoping to understand her better, or at least figure out her secrets. "How do you do all this?" one of them asked nervously. You're like perfect at everything. Arya looked at them calmly and smiled faintly. I've had training, she said simply. I learned to stay focused, stay calm, and observe carefully. It works in school too. Some students nodded, impressed. Others looked skeptical, unsure if they should be intimidated or just curious. No one could deny that she was different. During lunch, Arya's seating habits also drew attention. She didn't sit with the popular students, nor did she join any particular group. She chose a spot near a window, alone but not lonely. She unpacked her lunch carefully, eating slowly and observing the room around her. Students continued to watch from afar, unsure whether to approach or keep their distance. A girl named Mia, known for being friendly to everyone, finally decided to sit near Arya. "Hi," she said, smiling. "Do you want to join us for lunch sometimes?" Arya nodded politely. "Thank you, that would be nice." They ate together, and Mia found herself asking more questions than she had expected. What was it like being in the military? Was it scary? Arya looked out the window for a moment, considering her words. It was challenging. I learned to stay calm when things were difficult. But it wasn't just about fear, it was about responsibility. You have to care for the people around you. Mia nodded, impressed. Wow, that's really mature. I don't think most of us even think like that. As the day went on, the contrast between Arya and her peers became even clearer. While other students worried about grades, gossip, or social events, Arya focused on her tasks with methodical care. She completed homework efficiently, asked thoughtful questions, and helped others who needed guidance. Slowly, a few students began to see her not as a stranger, but as someone worth admiring. However, not everyone appreciated her presence. A group of students, led by a boy named Ryan, felt challenged by Arya's skills and discipline. They had been used to being the center of attention, and suddenly someone else had arrived who didn't follow the same rules. Ryan, who was popular and athletic, didn't like being overshadowed. During a group activity in class, Ryan and his friends decided to test Arya. They made small mistakes intentionally, hoping she would fail or react angrily. But Arya remained calm. She corrected errors politely and continued the task, never showing frustration or fear. Her composure only made Ryan more determined, though he didn't fully understand why. By the end of the day, Arya had made a strong impression on everyone. Some students were fascinated, some intimidated, and some curious. But all of them agreed on one thing: Arya Kane was not like anyone they had ever met. After school, Arya walked home through quiet streets, reflecting on her day. High school was a strange new battlefield, she thought, but not impossible. People had rules, strategies, and emotions that could be just as challenging as any mission she had faced. She knew she would have to adapt, not to dominate, but to understand and navigate this new world. That evening, while other students worried about gossip or social media, Arya planned. She reviewed her notes, thought about the interactions she had, and considered how she could help others while still fitting in. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, but she wanted to be respected, and in high school, respect was earned differently than on the battlefield. Meanwhile, at Lincoln High, the rumor mill was already in full swing. Students discussed her skills, her calm attitude, and the strange combination of strength and humility that made her so captivating. Some wanted to befriend her, while others were quietly wary. The balance of power in the school was shifting, though no one yet realized how much Arya would influence it. By the end of the week, small changes had begun. Teachers noticed that students were working harder, inspired by Arya's focus. Some students had begun to reconsider how they treated each other, noticing how calm, disciplined, and observant she was. Even those who initially doubted her abilities had to admit that she was exceptional. Yet Arya also learned quickly that high school was not a battlefield she could dominate with force or strategy alone. It was a world of emotions, friendships, misunderstandings, and social rules. She realized she would need patience, observation, and subtle guidance to navigate it successfully. Still, Arya remained confident. She had faced missions, emergencies, and dangers that most people could never imagine. High school, with all its chaos and drama, was simply another challenge. Different, yes, but manageable with focus, courage, and patience. As she closed her notebook and prepared for bed that night, Arya felt a sense of purpose. She had already begun to earn the quiet respect of her peers. She understood that patience would be her greatest weapon in this environment. And she knew that over time, she could not only survive high school but also teach others about discipline, courage, and resilience in ways they had never experienced before. For Lincoln High, the arrival of Arya Kane had already begun to shift the balance. The school was no longer just a place of ordinary students. It was now a place where discipline, courage, and determination, qualities honed in battle, would quietly inspire a new kind of admiration. The morning at Lincoln High began like any ordinary day. Sunlight streamed through the large classroom windows, highlighting the dust motes that floated lazily in the air. Students shuffled into their classes, some yawning, others chatting about homework or weekend plans. But for Arya Kane, nothing felt ordinary. She noticed the small details, the slight wobble in the science lab's tables, the worn handles of lockers, and the distracted attention of both students and teachers. Her eyes scanned constantly, alert and observant. In the first period, Mr. Patel's computer suddenly flashed an error, causing the projector in the classroom to flicker and shut off. The class groaned at the inconvenience, expecting the teacher to struggle with the situation. Arya, however, noticed immediately. She had seen systems fail during missions before, and her instincts told her this was more than a minor glitch. "Sir, I can check the wiring and connections," she said calmly. "It might just be a loose connection or a power surge." Mr. Patel blinked in surprise. Okay, Arya." "If you want to." Arya walked to the computer, her movements deliberate. She inspected the cables and connections, carefully adjusting each one. Within minutes, the projector flickered back to life, and the class erupted in whispers. Some students stared in awe, others exchanged puzzled looks. "Wow," muttered one student. "She's like a genius or something." Arya returned to her seat, calm and unbothered by the attention. To her, it was just a simple problem to solve. But for the rest of the class, it was a glimpse into her capability and confidence. By mid-morning, the situation escalated in a way no one could have predicted. A chemical experiment in the science lab, which had been set up by another class, accidentally caused a small reaction. Smoke began to fill the room, setting off alarms throughout the school. Panic quickly spread as students ran into the hallways, unsure of what to do. Arya's instincts took over immediately. She noticed the closest exits and assessed which students were in the most danger. Without hesitation, she moved through the chaos, guiding those who were confused or scared. "Everyone, stay calm." "Follow me," she called out, her voice firm but steady. Students paused and looked at her, drawn to her presence. She pointed to the nearest doors and instructed some students to help others who couldn't move quickly. A few students froze, unsure how to act. Tyler, who had tried to race her in gym class, was panicked. Arya reached him and grabbed his arm gently. "Follow me, keep moving steadily," she said. Her calm control gave him courage, and he followed her directions without hesitation. Teachers were also struggling. Some were trying to unlock doors that had jammed, while others were herding students in the wrong directions. Arya quickly coordinated with them, pointing out safer exits and helping to move students to open hallways. Her efficiency surprised even the staff. By the time the fire department arrived, everyone was outside and safe, thanks in large part to Arya's guidance. Students who had panicked earlier now looked at her with admiration. Some were silent, others whispered their gratitude. Even Mr. Patel, who had doubted her earlier, nodded respectfully. After the chaos settled, the principal, Mr. Lawson, called an assembly in the auditorium. Students and teachers gathered, still shaken from the morning's events. "I want to commend everyone for staying calm and helping each other," Mr. Lawson began. "But one student deserves special recognition today. Arya Kane, please come forward." Arya stood quietly, walking to the stage with the same calm composure she had maintained all morning. She nodded politely as Mr. Lawson spoke. Arya's quick thinking and leadership helped guide students and staff safely during what could have been a very dangerous situation. Her actions are a reminder that preparation, focus, and courage can make a real difference. The auditorium erupted in applause. Students who had once been skeptical or distant now clapped enthusiastically. Tyler even gave her a small, awkward smile from the back row. Arya simply nodded, acknowledging the respect but without pride or showiness. After the assembly, students approached her in small groups. Some wanted to shake her hand, others asked questions about how she stayed so calm under pressure. Mia, the friendly girl who had sat with her at lunch, came up with a few friends. "Arya, that was incredible," Mia said. "You saved a lot of people. How did you do it?" Arya smiled faintly. I've learned to stay calm and assess every situation. Panic makes problems worse. When you focus on what you can control, you can help others more effectively. Her classmates nodded, impressed. Even Ryan, who had once planned to test her, watched silently from across the room. There was a new understanding among the students. Arya Kane was more than just a veteran or a new student. She was someone who could lead when it mattered most. That afternoon, the school returned to its normal rhythm, but something had changed. Students walked with a sense of respect for Arya. Conversations about her courage and leadership spread quickly. Even teachers spoke of her actions with admiration, realizing that her presence was influencing the school in positive ways. During the next class, Arya noticed small gestures from students she hadn't seen before. Tyler offered to help her carry books, and Mia invited her to sit with her and her friends more often. Arya accepted politely but remained herself, observant, calm, and thoughtful. She wasn't seeking attention, she simply responded to kindness with courtesy. In the following days, Arya continued to integrate into school life. While other students dealt with minor conflicts or gossip, she focused on her work and on helping where she could. Some students approached her for advice about studying, organizing tasks, or dealing with stress. She offered practical guidance, drawing from her experiences in the military but translating them into simple, everyday lessons. One day, while walking through the hallways, she noticed Ryan and a few friends whispering and watching her. Arya didn't react with fear or anger. Instead, she observed their behavior calmly, understanding that they were still unsure how to handle someone like her. She realized that respect had to be earned through consistency, not just one act of courage. Even the students who had initially been dismissive or skeptical began to change their attitudes. Some admitted quietly that they wanted to be like her in some ways, focused, disciplined, and brave. Others simply appreciated that she treated them with respect, even when they didn't always act kindly in return. By the end of the week, Lincoln High had a new rhythm. Students moved through their days with a slightly higher level of awareness, influenced by the example Arya set. Teachers found that students were more attentive and cooperative in class, and even minor incidents were handled more calmly. Arya, for her part, reflected on the events. High school was not a battlefield, but it required its own kind of strategy, patience, observation, and quiet leadership. She had proven that her skills could be useful in any situation, and she felt a sense of purpose in helping others navigate challenges, no matter how small. That evening, Arya reviewed the week's events in her notebook. She wrote down observations about the students, teachers, and routines of the school. She considered how she could continue to guide and help, not by dominating or showing off, but by quietly leading through example. Lincoln High had not only survived the first crisis of Arya Kane's presence, they had begun to grow because of it. Her calm courage and practical leadership had transformed ordinary students into more thoughtful, aware, and confident individuals. And for Arya, it was another reminder. Whether on a battlefield or in a school, courage, discipline, and focus could make a real difference. As she closed her notebook and prepared for bed, Arya felt a quiet satisfaction. High school was challenging in its own way, but she was ready. She had already earned respect, and more importantly, she had shown that human skill, courage, and thoughtfulness could shine even in unexpected places. For Lincoln High, the first true test of Arya Kane had passed. But this was only the beginning. Students would soon learn that her presence was more than just extraordinary, it was transformative. Lincoln High was buzzing more than usual. The week had passed since the fire alarm incident, and Arya Kane had become the subject of endless conversation. Students who had initially been unsure how to react to her now watched her with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. Some quietly wanted to learn from her, others were intimidated by her calm confidence, and a few, like Ryan and his friends, were determined to test her again. It was a Friday afternoon, and the school was holding a fair in the gymnasium. Booths for games, art displays, and small competitions filled the space. The event was meant to be fun and friendly, but for Arya, it was a different kind of observation. She noticed who moved with coordination, who worked as a team, and who caused disruptions. Her attention to detail was sharp, nothing escaped her notice. Ryan, who had been quietly simmering with frustration since the first day, saw this as an opportunity. Surrounded by his friends, he whispered, "Today, we see what she's really made of. Let's see if the war hero can handle a real challenge here." The plan was simple. A small obstacle course set up as a fun game would become a test. Ryan intended to trip Arya, create distractions, and see if she would lose her composure in front of everyone. He thought it would be an easy victory. As Arya approached the obstacle course, she smiled faintly. She had noticed the whispers, the glances, and the tension in Ryan's group, but she did not appear nervous. Instead, she observed the course carefully, analyzing each section before attempting it. Her classmates watched with anticipation, sensing that something different was about to unfold. The first obstacle involved balancing across a narrow beam. Arya stepped onto it with careful precision, her posture steady. Students who had tried before wobbled and stumbled, but Arya moved smoothly, focusing on each step. Ryan, hiding behind a group of onlookers, flicked a small piece of paper to make her lose focus. Arya's eyes flicked to it, but she ignored the distraction, maintaining her balance effortlessly. Next was a climbing section with ropes. Many students struggled, swinging wildly or losing their grip. Arya approached calmly, analyzing the rope's tension and the best angles for her hands and feet. She climbed with methodical movements, conserving energy and maintaining control. Her classmates began to whisper excitedly. "She's amazing," one said. "It's like she's done this 100 times before." Ryan became frustrated. His friends were impressed, not with him, but with Arya. He decided to escalate. He stepped forward, trying to block her path during the final run. Arya noticed him immediately. Instead of reacting angrily, she adjusted her path slightly, using his own momentum to move around him. She didn't shove or confront him aggressively. She simply outmaneuvered him with calm skill. By the time Arya crossed the finish line, the gym erupted in applause. Students cheered not only because she completed the course, but because of the way she handled distractions and challenges with grace. Ryan's face turned red, and he muttered under his breath. He had expected her to react, to lose her cool, but she had remained composed the entire time. The day seemed to settle into normal festivities after the obstacle course, but Lincoln High was about to face an unexpected turn. A small drone, used for a demonstration in the tech club's booth, malfunctioned. It began buzzing erratically around the gym, moving unpredictably and frightening students. Some tried to run, others ducked under tables, but it was clear that the situation could become dangerous if not handled quickly. Arya, already alert, noticed the drone's movements. She quickly assessed the safest way to minimize risk. Her training had taught her to stay calm under pressure, identify threats, and act efficiently. Without hesitation, she moved toward the device, directing students to clear the area. "Everyone, stay back," she called out firmly. "Move away from the center. Keep calm and stay safe." Students froze, but many followed her instructions. The hallways outside the gym filled with students watching anxiously, trusting Arya's judgment. Tyler, who had been standing nearby, looked at her in awe. "She's fearless," he whispered. Arya reached the drone and used a controlled movement to disable it safely. No one was hurt, and the chaos quickly ended. Students and teachers alike stared at her with admiration. This was more than just completing an obstacle course. This was real leadership in a potentially dangerous situation. After the drone incident, the principal, Mr. Lawson, addressed the students once again. "Today, we've seen how quick thinking and calm decision-making can prevent accidents and keep everyone safe. Arya Kane acted with courage and intelligence, protecting her fellow students and staff. Let's all give her a round of applause." The applause was louder than before. Students who had doubted her abilities now looked at her with respect. Ryan, still seething but no longer openly defiant, realized that Arya's strength was not just physical. It was mental, emotional, and strategic. In the following days, the dynamics at Lincoln High began to shift. Students approached Arya not only for help with schoolwork, but also for advice on how to stay calm under stress, how to manage conflicts, and how to think strategically about everyday problems. She offered practical tips, drawing from her military training but translating them into simple, relatable lessons. Mia and her friends became regular companions, learning from Arya's example. Even Tyler sought her guidance on running techniques, organization skills, and leadership principles. Arya's influence was subtle but powerful, shaping the attitudes and behaviors of those around her. However, Arya also learned valuable lessons about patience and diplomacy. Ryan and his friends, though quieter now, still tested boundaries in small ways. Arya handled these challenges with care, never reacting with anger, but using observation, strategy, and calm reasoning to guide the situation. She realized that true leadership required more than skill. It required understanding human behavior and responding thoughtfully. One afternoon, Arya noticed Ryan struggling with a science project. Instead of ignoring him or feeling resentment for his previous behavior, she approached quietly. "Do you want some help?" she asked politely. Ryan looked surprised, then hesitated. Finally, he nodded. "I guess, yeah." Arya showed him how to organize his materials, break the project into smaller tasks, and stay focused without getting frustrated. By the end of the session, Ryan had made significant progress. He didn't openly admit it, but he began to respect her more. The week ended with a small ceremony at school. Teachers recognized students who had demonstrated growth and effort, and Arya received a quiet nod of acknowledgement for her continued positive influence. Students applauded, but it was different this time. It was not just for heroics in a crisis, but for consistent leadership, patience, and guidance. Arya reflected on the day as she walked home. High school was challenging in ways different from a battlefield. Here, battles were not fought with weapons, but with patience, understanding, and careful observation. Conflicts could arise from misunderstandings, competition, or fear. Leadership required listening, guiding, and inspiring others without forcing them. She realized that her military training had prepared her for much more than combat. It had taught her resilience, calmness, and empathy, skills that were equally valuable in any environment. That evening, Arya reviewed the events of the week in her notebook. She made notes about student behavior, responses to challenges, and ways she could continue to guide others. Her goal was not to dominate or control, but to inspire and teach by example. She understood that over time, her influence could grow quietly but powerfully. Lincoln High, meanwhile, had changed. Students were more aware, teachers noticed improved focus, and even small conflicts were being resolved more thoughtfully. Arya Kane had not only faced the challenges of her new environment, she had transformed them, showing that courage, discipline, and intelligence could shine in unexpected places. As she closed her notebook, Arya felt a quiet satisfaction. She had navigated social challenges, guided others through real danger, and earned respect without arrogance. The lessons she had learned here would serve her well in the days to come. For Lincoln High, the presence of Arya Kane had become more than extraordinary. It was transformative. Students now understood that leadership, courage, and calm reasoning were qualities worth admiring. And for Arya, the journey of adaptation and guidance was only just beginning. The final weeks of the semester at Lincoln High had a different rhythm. The air was filled with the usual chatter of students preparing for exams and projects, but something had shifted. The presence of Arya Kane had grown into a steady influence, quiet yet undeniable. Students who had once whispered about her with curiosity or fear now approached her with respect, and teachers found themselves inspired by her calm leadership and focus. It began with small changes. In the morning hallways, students walked with more awareness, holding doors for each other or offering help to peers carrying heavy books. Arya didn't instruct them to do so, nor did she make announcements. She simply demonstrated care and attentiveness in her own actions, and others began to mirror it. Tyler, the athletic student who had once raced against her in gym class, now helped younger students with exercises and encouraged them, clearly influenced by Arya's patience and guidance. Mia and her friends continued to sit with Arya during lunch, but their conversations had grown deeper. They asked her questions not only about schoolwork but also about life, choices, and how she managed challenges. Arya answered with simple, thoughtful words, always calm, always honest. She didn't lecture, but her advice carried weight. "Sometimes," she said during one lunch, "the hardest part is staying calm when things are difficult. People rush, argue, or panic. If you take a moment, think clearly, and help others, it can make a huge difference." Her classmates listened quietly, some nodding, some smiling. They realized that her experiences were not distant or irrelevant. They were lessons they could apply, even in the simple, everyday struggles of high school. The teachers noticed the shift too. Classes became more focused, group projects ran smoother, and minor conflicts were resolved without constant intervention. Mrs. Henderson, who had once been unsure about Arya, found herself quietly observing the positive influence. "It's amazing," she said to a colleague one morning. She's teaching them leadership without even trying. They just want to follow her example. Not all students were immediate admirers. Ryan and his friends still tested boundaries occasionally, but even their challenges had softened. They had seen how Arya handled confrontation calmly, without anger or arrogance, and it had a subtle but powerful effect. One day, Ryan approached her after class. "Arya, thanks," he said, slightly awkward, "for helping the other day with the science project and, well, for everything, I guess." Arya looked at him calmly and nodded. "You're welcome, I'm glad it helped." He hesitated, then smiled faintly. It was a small moment, but it marked the beginning of mutual respect. Ryan and his friends were learning that true strength didn't come from intimidation or showing off, but from calm focus and helping others. The school's cultural shift became even more visible during the annual science fair. Students worked in teams with renewed collaboration, inspired by the example Arya had set. When a technical problem arose with one group's project, Arya approached without hesitation. She offered guidance, asked questions to understand the situation, and helped them find a solution. Her calm approach ensured that no one panicked, no one argued, and the project was successfully completed. At the fair's closing ceremony, Mr. Lawson addressed the students and staff. "This semester, we've faced challenges and learned from them. One student in particular has shown exceptional leadership, patience, and courage. Arya Kane has not only excelled in her own work, but has inspired her peers and teachers alike. Her presence has reminded us all of the importance of focus, empathy, and resilience." The applause was warm and genuine. Students cheered, some even standing, not just for Arya's achievements, but for the way she had quietly influenced their lives. Arya, ever humble, nodded in acknowledgement but remained composed, letting the appreciation flow naturally without seeking attention. The following week solidified her place in the school community. Students who had been hesitant to approach her now sought her guidance openly. She helped organize study groups, encouraged teamwork in sports, and guided younger students in leadership and responsibility. Her presence became a steady force of calm influence, making the school environment more cooperative, thoughtful, and respectful. Even Ryan began to change noticeably. He no longer sought to challenge her directly, but instead looked to understand and learn from her example. One afternoon, while the two were walking to the library, he said quietly, "I guess you've changed how I see things. I thought being tough was about showing off, but it's more about thinking, staying calm, and helping people, isn't it?" Arya smiled faintly. "Yes. Strength isn't just physical. It's about how you handle yourself and how you help others." The words resonated with him, and he nodded thoughtfully. This simple conversation represented a deeper transformation within the school. Students who had once only cared about popularity or competition were now learning to value discipline, calmness, and empathy, qualities Arya displayed effortlessly every day. As the semester drew to a close, the school held a small ceremony to recognize student achievements. Awards were given for academic performance, leadership, teamwork, and character. Arya did not seek recognition. She had never pursued praise. But when Mr. Lawson called her name for a special acknowledgement, the students erupted in applause. "Arya Kane," he said, "has shown that courage, intelligence, and compassion can make a real difference, even in the smallest of ways. She has transformed the way we see leadership, teamwork, and responsibility. Thank you, Arya, for inspiring all of us." Arya stood quietly, nodding her thanks. Her classmates' cheers were louder and warmer than anything she had experienced before. She felt a quiet satisfaction, not from recognition, but from knowing that her actions had genuinely helped others grow and learn. After the ceremony, students gathered around her, eager to talk, ask questions, and simply be in her presence. She spoke to each of them patiently, answering questions, offering guidance, and listening attentively. She had become a central figure in the school's community, not because she demanded attention, but because her actions earned respect and admiration naturally. Even teachers found themselves influenced by her example. Staff meetings became more focused, disciplinary actions were handled with calm reasoning, and collaboration among teachers improved. Arya's quiet leadership had extended beyond the student body, subtly transforming the entire school environment. That evening, Arya walked home with her notebook, reflecting on the semester. She thought about the first day, when students had whispered nervously about a war veteran in class. She thought about the obstacles she had faced, distractions, challenges, skepticism, and even small acts of defiance. Now, looking back, she saw how each challenge had been an opportunity to demonstrate patience, calm, and thoughtful leadership. High school was not a battlefield, she realized, but it required similar qualities: observation, strategy, and the ability to guide others under pressure. She had learned to adapt, to teach without lecturing, and to lead without forcing. And in doing so, she had helped the students and teachers of Lincoln High become stronger, more thoughtful, and more resilient. Her phone buzzed with a message from Mia. "Thanks for everything, Arya. You've made this school feel better. We all see it." Arya smiled faintly, typing back, "You all made it easy to help. I'm proud of how everyone has grown." As she put her phone away, she looked up at the sky. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the streets and buildings. For Arya, this moment was a quiet reward. The knowledge that courage, discipline, and empathy could create change anywhere, even in a high school classroom. The next morning, Lincoln High felt a little different. Students greeted each other with more respect. Teachers approached challenges with calm reasoning, and small acts of kindness were more common. Arya's influence had become woven into the fabric of daily life, a reminder that one person's example could inspire many. Even Ryan, once skeptical and challenging, now encouraged teamwork in class projects and helped younger students in sports activities. Tyler shared study tips and organization strategies he had learned from Arya. The ripple effect of her leadership was clear. One individual acting with quiet courage and patience could transform the people around them. As the semester ended, Arya walked through the halls one last time, reflecting on her journey. She had arrived as a stranger, a war veteran in a world of teenagers and ordinary challenges. She had faced skepticism, distractions, and social tests. She had guided, inspired, and transformed the environment quietly but powerfully. And in doing so, she had earned the respect and admiration of the entire school community. Lincoln High would never forget the semester when Arya Kane became part of their lives. She had shown them that strength was more than physical, courage was more than bravery, and leadership was more than giving orders. It was about understanding, guiding, and inspiring others to be their best selves. And as she walked home one last time before the break, Arya knew this was only the beginning. The lessons she had taught and the example she had set would remain, influencing her classmates long after she left the hallways of Lincoln High. She had become a symbol of resilience, calm, and thoughtful leadership, a true testament to the power of human potential.